The oldest and strongest human emotion is fear. And the oldest and strongest type of fear is trepidation of the unknown. When we were children, our parents told us that monsters didn't exist. But we were sure that something was lurking under the bed or in the closet. Fear sees, even if our eyes are closed. Welcome to the realm of the arcane. My name is Lon Strickler. Join me as I examine unexplained creatures, strange manifestations, and remarkable realities. Imagine this next hour as a voyage of discovery to strange lands, seeking not for new territory, but for new knowledge of the supernatural. Come on board as we begin this adventure together. Hey folks, good evening and welcome to another episode of Arcane Radio, where we explore the unexplained live on Beyond Explanation. I'm your host, Lon Strickler, coming to you within a cannon shot of historic Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining us. Now, just a quick note, Arcane Radio and Beyond Explanation channel is made possible only by you liking, subscribing, and sharing our programming. Super chat donations are essential for us to continue offering this unique content. So your consideration is very much appreciated. And for those folks in the chat tonight, if you have questions about Bigfoot, other cryptids, or any unexplained phenomena, well, this is Fortean Friday. This is our new segment. So let the members of the Fans of Monsters Fortean research team help you with the answers. So it's been a busy week. I mean, it's been some crazy stuff going on. As many of you know, I'm working on a new case, and I talked about it in the Ask Lon Anything segment. This supposed Indrid Cold incident. An individual who's been an associate of mine who lives in Queens, New York, got a call from his friend who lives north in upstate New York, in Hartwick, New York. Now, what happened was she was outside and it was dark, but she had seen a dark winged humanoid, the form of a dark winged humanoid. And of course, it frightened her. She didn't know what it was. So she came running in the house and she gave this guy, my friend, my associate, her friend, a call. And because she knew he was into paranormal, and she told him what she saw. And as they were talking, the call waiting came up, and on the screen it said Indrid Cold. And there was no phone number, no other information. She answered the phone. And this guy on the other end of the phone, on the other end of the line, said, "Do not tell anybody about what you just saw. My name is Indrid Cold." But she freaked out and hung up. And she told her associate what had just happened. And this was no more than like 20 minutes after the sighting. Well, as she was talking to the associate again, the call waiting came up again. Same thing, Indrid Cold. Well, she didn't answer this time. So he drove up there the other day, and he's still up there, and he's investigating this. So if I know he's going to write up a report, give us an idea of what's going on. I've got other team members who may be able to help out if he needs it. But this is something that may take some time to look into. You know, I talked to Dr. Raymond Keller the other night, and he suggested that this may very well be some type of government thing. Of course, you know, the Darrenberger sightings near Parkersburg, West Virginia, where this whole Indrid Cold thing started. There were, and a lot of people don't know this because this was in November 1966. So this was about the time the Wolfman sightings started in Point Pleasant. Well, Parkersburg is about 55 miles north of there. And a lot of people don't know that there were Mothman, winged humanoid, and UFO sightings in the Parkersburg area during this period. So yeah, that's what we're working with right now. So I've got Raymond involved with this, and of course my associate, and we got a team who knows about it. And the whole team knows about it now. So if anything comes up, we'll keep you informed on it. So tonight, I welcome Fams and Monsters Fortean research investigators Carter Buschardt and Marcus Ellis to Arcane Radio for discussion of recent investigations and reports of Fortean supernatural and paranormal happenings. Now, Marcus conducts most of his work in the state of Mississippi. After seeing the Patterson Bigfoot film and the Legend of Boggy Creek as a kid, he has studied the world of Sasquatch ever since. He is one of the lead investigators for the Mississippi-based research group MBEST or MBEST, which is Mississippi Bigfoot Evidence Search Team. And Carter has been an investigator with BFRO for about 12 years. Originally from Texas, he currently lives in Missouri. He's had over 75 reports published in BFRO website. He's telling me now it was over 90 now, I think. And he has interviewed over 200 witnesses and counting. He is an experienced outdoorsman trained as an investigator for MUFON. He studied herpetology in college, long-time special interest in Sasquatch long-term habituation sites, burial research, infrasound language, and stick structures. And Carter's recent book is titled Sasquatch Evidence of an Enigma. And I believe you should get that if you're involved with Bigfoot, because it's got a lot of interesting information there. So, guys, thanks for coming on the show tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for having us.
So, I guess we all start out, and I guess we're going to talk a bit about Bigfoot before we start answering some of the questions that are in here. So, Carter, why don't you tell some folks what you've been working on? I know you're doing your second book now. Mm-hmm. What's some of the stuff of interest?
Well, the second book, it's going to be Enigma 2, basically, but it's more metaphysical, quantum, paranormal type reports. It may or may not include your standard, Bigfoot road crossing, but the people are coming out of the woodwork now with some off the wall stuff, and it's a stuff that nobody else will touch. The main reporting agencies don't want to touch it if it's got any kind of paranormal or woo. I really hate that word. It's a dirty word, but anyway. Yeah, so that's what I'm gathering, and some of it is just like, what? But it's crazy stuff, and people need to hear this. You don't have to necessarily believe any of this stuff, but you have to at least consider it, because we're banging our heads against the wall with a dumb ape in the woods theory. So we got to keep moving and come up with some other ideas. So that's what this book is about.
Excellent. So, Marcus, what have you been working on?
Well, with COVID and everything, I haven't been able to get with, Doug and Karen Randall, who are the founders of MBEST. I think they've been out in the field a little bit, on their own, and I've done a little bit on my own. But and I didn't know this about Carter, but we kind of have something else in common. I'm a big a MUFON field investigator, and I've been doing more UFO investigations for MUFON than I have anything else all year. So with COVID doing the damage that it's done, thank you. MUFON has had me rolling. I mean, we don't get a lot of Bigfoot stuff and cryptid stuff because, I don't know, people in Mississippi, I've said this before and I'll say it again, people down here, they're really reticent about talking about that stuff. They're really private. But now if there's a UFO sighting, people tend to be a little more open here in Mississippi, and we'll talk about that. So they've kept me and my fellow field investigators with MUFON. They've had us hopping. So, but I have had a couple of weird things happen in the Bigfoot. Yes, Pascagoula. I've come across some things that never made mainstream news that I've been looking into. So, but yeah, Bigfoot's he's alive and well in Mississippi. I say that all the time too, and I've had some recent activity. So they haven't gone anywhere. That's for certain.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming into the season now. Of course, it's fairly warm down you all are right now, and it's not bad here. I mean, it's been warm, and people are gonna start getting out there and start seeing stuff. And you're right, the UFO sightings have been pretty steady the whole way through this COVID thing. Butch has been busy as hell. I mean, I have been here in Pennsylvania with sightings. So, and I have had sightings down in Mississippi. I've had people telling me about things they've seen.
Mm-hmm.
So, that area has been pretty busy even over the years. So, well, like I said, and Carter, you mentioned and we were talking about this before the show, about the supernatural aspect of this phenomena of Bigfoot, even other cryptids as well.
Yeah.
I like most people in this field now think that there is a connection in the paranormals, and I'm talking about all kinds of things, UFOs, ghosts, anything as far as cryptids go. There's some type of connection somewhere. A lot of times you'll get into an investigation, something else just pops up, like, didn't see that coming. Just like with the winged humanoid sightings. Now we're getting UFO and other humanoid sightings associated with it. And, that's been going on for years with Bigfoot. So interesting.
Yeah. And I from the last book, I got a guy contacted my website, and I've just finished writing up his story. He had a Sasquatch corner him and his dog, and he basically had 6 hours of missing time. And so that's a conundrum in and of itself. He was working on his house. He's adding on to his cabin up in the hills. I can't say where, but he's got a nice cabin. His wife was pregnant at the time. They had a newborn already. So he had moved her out of the house and moved a travel trailer onto his property so he could stay there and scab off the electricity because everything was turned off in the house. So he's gathering up the tools, and he's kind of subcontracting this. So in the mornings, all the workers show up, and he, delegates, you go here, you go do this and all that. So he's putting his tools away. It's about 11:30 one night. And he'd had some activity, but it's few and far between. But this 10-foot Squatch just appeared, made a noise, came out of the woods, and it was about 11:30. He could see him. It was full moonlit at night. There's some, lights around the property. It started walking toward him. So he freaked and grabbed his dog, a 110-pound German Shepherd that was cowering and didn't want to go anywhere near it. They ran into the trailer. He realized he didn't have a weapon with him. He went through the drawers, grabbed a carving knife, and he locked himself in the bathroom with his dog with the knife pointed out like this at the door, just waiting for him to come in. And that was about 11:30. And he awoke at 5:30 the next morning in the same position he was in. And his dog was still out. He was in a trance, but his eyes were open. And when he stood up, he realized, I don't feel like I've been in the same position for 6 hours. I feel like refreshed and like it just happened, overnight. In a split second. So, but he had 6 hours of missing time, and a Sasquatch was coming at him. I have suggested that he go to do some regression hypnosis to maybe perhaps find out, because I've done regression hypnosis and I found out a lot of stuff that I was unaware of. So it's not that bad. You just got to find the right people to do it. But that's the first one that I've taken where he had missing time with the Sasquatch. I've heard other reports, obviously, with missing time and, alien abductions and the genetics and all the stuff they're doing, but this one was just really bizarre. And he's very moved by it. I mean, he wants to find out. He's very troubled. And I told him, if you find out what happened, it'll be less stress than you wondering about it for the next 20, 30 years of your life. Just find out what it was and deal with it. If it's too painful and too traumatic, well, lay off a little bit, do it in steps. But it does work. You know, I've been under twice with Dolores Cannon, bless her heart, rest in peace. She's a great lady, she was, and her daughters are still running her operation down there in Arkansas. Anyway, that was a unique report, and we both are like scratching our heads because, you know, there's that 6 hours of missing time, and there's no explanation. Well, there is one. He's just going to have to dig for it. You know, pretty cool stuff.
Well, you know, I've heard this situation before, you know, and, you know, that all comes back to what people think Bigfoot really is. Is it some type of non-terrestrial being? You know, I had an habituations case I was working on in Nova Scotia, and the guy who owned the farm, who's deceased now, unfortunately, he had the same thing. He was missing time. Every time he would, have a sighting of these Bigfoot, he would have missing time. He didn't know what happened. He'd always find himself laying in bed and waking up, almost like it was like a dream, but it wasn't, of course. But yeah, it is weird. You know, we had a discussion. There's a discussion in the chat about why do the eyes of the Bigfoot shine the way now? You know, is it related to just like with dogs and other animal, cats, where they have the reflective the gathering light reflective part of the retina where it actually shines back. Do you think this is something similar to that, or you think it may be something supernatural?
Well, the eye glows. The glowing eyes, you've got two different categories: eye glow and eye shine. Eye glow, they produce their own light. And eye shine is reflective. It's ambient light, headlights or a flashlight or whatever. So I have seen them up in Iowa on a nighttime expedition. I've seen the beams coming out of the eyes hitting the ground. It was white, but there was a beam coming out of, it is what it is. And so there's no ambient light. We're in the middle of the woods. We're in the middle of nowhere, And so there's no ambient light. There's no headlights, campfire, lanterns, nothing. So that was self-produced. How they do it, don't know. I've got several reports in the new book where they've got red eyes in there in broad daylight. They're seeing the eyes go on. Now, so I'm trying to decide if it's a stress situation that triggers this, like an alarm thing where they just, they get stressed and hyper and they're seen by humans and they're, they don't know what to do, but the eyes got red and it was generated. It was daylight and there was nothing to reflect off of. It was in a forest and this guy and his father watched this creature. It was doing all kinds of gymnastics, but there's two different kinds. So they can produce it or it's reflective. And the stuff where they're producing the light, there's something there. That's just, you can't make that up, especially if you've seen them. There's people who have seen the beams coming out. I was with 4 other people. So it's there. Either we're all nuts, stoners, or it's happening. We all took a vote. It happened. So, it was like, holy crap,
Yeah. So Marcus, what's your thoughts on that?
Again, I'm going to have to lean it towards to being a little bit of both. Now, the reports that I've heard and gotten here in Mississippi is more eye shine. I haven't talked to anyone or heard of anyone who's had eye glow. It's been more eye shine. But as we started talking earlier in this, the show, that back in the day, they used to refer to this in the UFO world as high strangeness. And, I always bring up John Keel. John Keel, when he got started looking into, Mothman and all these other things that he started looking into, of course, he really started out with UFOs. He was a nuts and bolts guy. These things are nuts and bolts. But he started getting off into it, And then the next thing he knows, he's dealing with poltergeists. He's dealing with winged hominids. He's dealing with cattle mutilations. So Bigfoot winds up in that bag.
Mhm.
And you know, what do you make of it? Heck if I know.
Yeah.
But the important thing is, as Carter pointed out, you can't take this and sit that over here and go, I'm not going to fool with that. I'm just going to fool with this. If you do that, you're not an investigator. You're not a researcher. You've made your mind up. You've solved the case. Time to pack it in and go home. And I'm an investigator. I'm a researcher. So, I mean, goodness, Lon, that's like the case that you had me look into with the gentleman who had Bigfoot on his property. Remember that case you let me look into? He had Bigfoot on his property. He had all type of ghost activity in the house. Then he leaves and joins the military. He witnesses at 30,000 feet a UFO. He's in his bedroom in Nashville, Tennessee. He wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's a gray standing there, in the corner of the room. This is one guy, but he had all these things happen to him in the course of his life. So you can't. Oh, like Hell's Gate. I always talk about Hell's Gate. Again, M.K. Davis introduced me to Hell's Gate. He took me out there, and one of the first nights we were there, we have got concrete in the bag, Bigfoot activity going on. So I started going out there on my own where these 3 Indian mounds are. Name it, I've had it happen. Residual hauntings, a demonic encounter, wood knocks, name it. UFO activity, name it. And I've experienced it at this one spot. And it all sprang from going there, following a hunch, thinking that it's Bigfoot, and I believe that it is. But then this one spot, you get all this other activity.
Yeah.
So you can't be an investigator and close the door. You got to take it all in, and you got to look into all of it.
That's correct.
It's kind of like just like here in Gettysburg, we get a lot of Bigfoot reports on the battlefield, UFO reports. It's almost like they're attracted to all the spirit energy on the battlefield. It's weird. I mean, when you go out there, you almost sense that there's something else out there. Of course, I'm intuitive. I kind of pick up on that, but it's hard to explain. We did get a question here. Indigenous people say you should never look into the eyes of Sasquatch. Are there repercussions for doing that? What do you think?
It is lore and myth for sure with the indigenous peoples and Native Americans and on up into Canada and Alaska. It's passed down from generation to generation, whether it was meant to scare the children to keep them close to camp, or if it's a real thing. And I think they really truly believe that is a form of betrayal to look them in the eye because they are to be worshipped and they are superior, But that's how mythology gets started,
Yeah.
Can you show me somebody who's been struck down and killed because you looked at a Sasquatch? It sounds frightening. And if these glowing eyes, and I've seen the glowing eyes, we weren't looking at one another. They were looking down at the ground because we could watch them. They weren't looking at me, but we were looking at them. So if there was some repercussion, we didn't get it, but there was no direct eye contact. So I think belief in that mythology will certainly enhance the relationship you have with the Sasquatch if you come face to face with one and look him in the eye. And maybe you will turn away and won't look at him. And Sasquatches don't like to be looked at. They don't like to be looked in the eye. And I'm working with a guy now on the second book that is talking about this very thing. They avoid eye contact at all costs, because, you know, we have these cameras, we have boxes with eyeballs on them, we stick on trees, and that's like sticking a camera in your living room. Marcus or Lon, you stick a camera up in your corner of your living room. How long before you see it's there? Well, who's doing that? Who's spying on me? What are they looking at? It's humans. I don't want, you know. So there's something with Native Americans. Native Americans, when white man started taking their picture, I'm getting to a point. I'm getting there. They thought the camera lens stole your soul. And that goes back.
Right.
There's a symbiotic relationship with you know, Native Americans and Sasquatch going back 10,000 years, 5,000, just pick a number. You know, they're going to pick up those belief systems, you know, and they will shy away. And Native Americans hated having their picture taken, because I think many of them had to go get cleansed or had some prayers told over them or for them if they had their pictures taken. You know, not all tribes, but anyway, I think that whole thing with the eye and looking in the eye, and we have a camera with a eyeball on it in a tree that is their living room. You know, there's probably is some truth to that, or a belief system, you know, but I have not heard anybody that has been injured or even heard about it. I haven't. Maybe Marcus has. I haven't heard anything, but I would err on the side of it being true if I was worried about looking in the eye of a Sasquatch, you know.
I haven't heard of that either, Carter. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I've never heard that either, but usually, that being said, when a lot of people encounter Sasquatch, especially someone who is not looking for them, a lot of times when you're like us, a lot of times when you're investigating and you're going and looking, most of the time you don't see Bigfoot. It's the people who happen upon him, or Bigfoot happens upon them. But it's tough enough for a lot of people when they do see Bigfoot, when they realize they are looking at something that their mom and dad, that their teachers and their college professors told them that does not exist. That creature does not exist. That's a legend. That's a myth. But when you talk to witnesses, when you listen to witnesses, I saw this thing. It was 8 feet tall. It was as wide as my refrigerator, and it looked like it was staring into my soul. I mean, it's a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, that's enough. I mean, people are just gobsmacked when they encounter these creatures.
Good word.
And,
yeah, they are. And you know, I've got a guy that's going to be I'm working on his story now. He was 25 feet away staring at a Sasquatch. And this thing had the Joker kind of smile. It was just this big grin. It was looking right at him. It was just standing right there. And they were looking at eye to eye. Nothing happened. Now, maybe the Sasquatch doesn't have those skill sets. Maybe he didn't feel threatened, so he didn't zap the guy, you know. And that's another thing, you know, looking into the eye of a Sasquatch, you know, could be a form of transmitting zapping or infrasound. Not that you really need that, because they can affect you with that without you being anywhere physically close to them. You know, I've had that. My wife and I had that happen to us.
I've experienced that at a distance.
Yeah.
I have too.
So, yeah.
So I'm sorry,
somebody could say,
I mean, for example, yeah, I'm sorry, Carter, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
Well, I was just going to say that like you and your wife, I've experienced infrasound. I mean, you know, we're asking about the eyes and talking about what a Bigfoot's eyes can do to you or whatever. But infrasound to me is I don't know. I'll use the word tangible, but it's a lot more reported. I've experienced infrasound at least 3 times. One time, these things were way off. We never saw them. But again, I was with M.K. Davis, and we both at the same time, this is like our, mid-morning, we're investigating this place out around Belzona, Mississippi. And we both got violently sick at the exact same time. And you can sit there and go, okay, well, they must have stopped at McDonald's and got bad breakfast at the same time together. We didn't. Now, MK stopped at McDonald's. I had breakfast at home. So we weren't both sick because of what we ate. There was activity going on around us, and we got zapped. And I've been in a location by myself. And the minute I got out of my car, the split second I stepped out of my car, I had an overwhelming sense of fear. I was terrified. Just absolutely from head to toe. I almost just got back in my car and went home. But I was like, no, you're an investigator. You need to suck it up a little bit and let's push forward. But it was terror. Sheer terror.
Yeah.
It was totally unnatural.
Yeah. Same for me. I took my wife to one of my research areas, and we were both zapped, yet we both had completely different reactions, not like you and MK, where you both got ill. She was freaked out from the moment we got there. She had that, that creepy, tingly, something's looking at me. I want to get out of here right now. This area is creeping me out. And it's my research area, one of them. And it's very active. It's a good place. I, on the other hand, we parked our car at the very top of this hill. It's undrivable. They have a big steel gate that you park in front of, and you walk down about 100 yards to where I was going to take her. And so, because I wanted to show her this area where I had a thermal sighting, a few years back. So as we're walking down there, she's freaking out. She's stopping every few steps. Something's wrong. So I just, I'm freaking out. We need to get out of here. I believe you. Let's just go. I said, no. I want to take you down here. It's okay. Nothing's going to happen. I kind of feel it too, but I'm used to this. And so look, our car is right up here. I look up there and my car's gone. It's not where I parked it. I said, where'd our car go? I looked where I was going just out of habit, because that's the only place I thought. I looked down at the bottom of this ravine, which is blocked by a steel gate. I'm seeing my car. I'm going, well, how did our car get down there? Now she's freaking out even worse, because she's going, our car's not there. It's up there. I looked up there. I said, no, it's not. It's gone. And she's looking up there, and I'm shining my light. It's not there. She said, yes, it is. It's there. I'm going, no, it's down here. And then I looked back up, and there it was, where it should be. I looked back down, and it was not there, where it wasn't in the first place. I was turned around. So, but I knew what was happening, but at the same time, I was going, I couldn't believe my eyes. Nah, I know what's going on. They're just messing with me. But they were messing with me. Thing is, infrasound, 2 people a foot apart, completely different reactions. I'm hallucinating something I even know isn't happening, but it was real. And she is just totally free to get that creepy vibe. Someone's looking at me, someone's stalking me, someone's here, so 2 different things. Just like Ron Moorhead, you familiar with his Sierra Sounds? Where he and his 3 or 4 other guys heard the camp being totally ripped apart, destroyed. They had run into, they felt them coming, so they ran into their lean-to, and they heard their garbage cans being ripped apart and thrown down the mountainside. They heard all their tools and food and fire and everything, tent, everything being ripped to shreds. When it all died down, it was quiet. They walk out. Everything's just like it was. But that sound was in their head, and they all heard it. So there's not 4 guys going crazy. There's 4 guys that heard something, and so it was either mass hypnosis or telepathy or mind speak or infrasound, and they all heard it, and there was nothing there. So they're not spooked. They're not freaked out because they're in the dark all by themselves with a big, mean Squatch. They're adult men. They know what they're seeing and what they're not seeing and hearing. And so how do you explain that stuff away? Ron Moore, I mean, he's like the salt of the earth and honest as they come. And, he doesn't care if you don't believe him or not.
Absolutely.
But how do you blow that off? And other stories just like it,
Well, you
consider the
can't.
source,
You that's right. You can't. And, he expounded on that in his Quantum Bigfoot book. I don't know if either of you guys have ever read that, but
I've read it.
But Ron's book on that, it opened my eyes up. It really did.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah. No, it's very intriguing. And, there's a good question, but
Yeah, that's
quantum
a good
physics
question.
can be proven with math, and the only way it can be disproven is with math, according to Ron. And it's true. I mean, it's mathematical formulas. So, if you're hypothesizing certain quantum things that can happen with, science, physics, math, math is the answer. And if it's provable with math, because that's a universal language of all science is math, so you can only unprove it. You can't just say, well, that's baloney. Show me that it can't happen. And it's like, Einstein or Max Planck or way back, the theorists come up with the theories, and they're proven to be possible, if not probable. So how do you blow something off because you just don't believe it? That's too incredible. That's too much like Star Trek. I mean, we're in the Star Trek era right now.
Yep.
Now we had
Absolutely.
this
We're
question
living it every day.
In the past, did settlers acknowledge the strange creatures? Well, yeah, they did. And I know that for a fact. I mean, here in southern Pennsylvania, and I lived in Maryland, but they had what they call a dwell. And basically it was what people consider now an upright canine or a dog man. And of course, when the German settlers started moving into the farms in southern Pennsylvania and into western Maryland, all these dwell reports were coming in. Of course, a lot of people thought they were talking about werewolves or stuff that was part of the lore in old Germany back in the old country.
Mm-hmm.
But I have seen some of these stories that are pretty frightening, and it was it's pretty well known around here that these things may have happened. And of course, we get these sightings in Pennsylvania pretty steady. So what do you guys think about with settlers and such, and people that came into the colonies or even just beyond that?
Well, I'm friends with a Native American Cherokee in Oklahoma, and he's got thousands of stories. And I actually took a report from him regarding his grandfather and an uncle, and this was in the early 1900s. And so, but it goes further back than that. They had no running water and no electricity, so the grandfather was babysitting the uncle. So the grandfather had to leave for a while, 15 minutes to go down to the creek, get water, and come back. He left, came back, and they're in the middle of nowhere, on tribal land in Oklahoma. There's a Sasquatch looking over his uncle in the crib, just looking over the baby. There's only one way in and one way out. He backed away, said, "You may leave. Please get out of here." There's a lot of screaming and yelling, and that's in the early 1900s. And it goes back, again, with the Native Americans and settlers, and there's all kinds of, mythology and folklore tales. But, the Vikings in 1400s supposedly saw Sasquatch, wild, hairy, crazy wild men. I believe it was more on the East Coast. I believe that's where they landed, somewhere on the East Coast. I can't remember, but they go back. I cannot imagine that not. The only reason nobody knows about it really is there's no internet. You got telegraph. How do you telegraph? Did Sasquatch? How do you do that? So there's just no way to share those stories. Let's say somebody goes to the newspaper and say, "Hey, I just saw this 8-foot tall, red-haired something. I don't know what it was." Well, you're crazy, Bob. I'm putting that in the story, but it makes the papers anyway. So, that's out there. I'm just not familiar, but I know it's there. You just brought great examples, Lon. I mean, we all know it's part of our heritage.
Yep. How about it, Marcus?
Well, and it's part of it's part of Mississippi heritage too, because when you talk to Bigfoot researchers here in the South, especially Mississippi, one of the first terms that you will hear a Bigfooter or other researchers, like say Lyle Blackburn, being a famous example, you'll hear the term booger. And I heard this expression when I was a little bitty boy coming up in Lena, Mississippi. I would hear my grandparents say, talking to my mom, "Go get Marcus and bring him in before that booger gets him." Now, as I grow up and I'm thinking about the boogeyman, but I was hearing it, remembering it wrong. Because if you go back and you look, your Scot-Irish people in Scotland and Ireland and places like that, what they referred to as a swamp was a bog. So they had these creatures in England and Scotland. To this very day, they have Bigfoot sightings in these other countries. Well, they would refer to these creatures as boggers. So they get on board their ships. They travel to the new land. They come to America. So their terminology, their phrasing gets morphed and kind of, I don't know if twisted is the right word. It's probably not, but it changes from bogger into booger. And a lot of Bigfoot researchers who have gone and looked into this, that's where that word comes from. So, yeah, I'm Irish. My ancestors are Irish, and I've got Indian blood in me as well. But my kinfolk from Ireland, they brought that term into Mississippi with them, and that's what I remember hearing the old folks back in the old homestead talking about the booger. The booger will get you. Do you hear that booger? They're talking about Bigfoot. That's what they're talking about. They're not talking about Michael Myers, the boogeyman. They're talking about Bigfoot. And all those years, it took me to becoming an investigator and a researcher to go have that light bulb pop on. They were talking about Bigfoot. So again, yes, to answer the person's question, that does come from across the sea and people who, immigrated to America. Yeah, absolutely.
I never heard that version before. That's actually interesting because I've always just thought it was an American word, because I've said booger my whole life, and a lot of guys around here call them boogers,
me too.
Wood boogers and whatever, So that's interesting.
Wood boogers,
I've never heard that version before. That's actually kind of interesting. So it's cool to know,
Yeah,
it's a trivia. It's a bar.
Yeah, it very much
sit
is.
at a bar one night and say, "I bet you I know where the word booger come from." But that's cool.
So we got another question here. Why do you think there have been a spike in encounters in recent years? Well, my thoughts are the internet and paranormal TV. And I think because of that,
Bingo.
people are much more open to coming forward and making reports. Now, you guys may have different opinion, but I believe that may be what's helping it anyway. What do you think, Carter?
Well, I think more people in the woods, and I think technology. The cell phones are getting better, although they're all really blob squatch photos. The cameras are getting good. That photo I showed you guys is proof that you can get something on a camera. So They do make cameras that can do that work, and you just have to be in the right place at the right time to have your camera ready. And so, you know, that I think, and people are more interested in this because I think a lot of people have questions, even though they say they don't believe in it or they don't really pay attention to it. I think they really do. A lot of people do. You go, could there be an 8 or 9, 10-foot creature walking around? I mean, no, let's go. Let's take a look. I mean, you know, I think people are open to it, if nothing else, because technology is getting to the point where you can't dismiss it. You know, look at the Tic Tac video. They denied the UFOs for what, 80 years, humiliated people, ruined their lives. And all of a sudden we see the Tic Tac videos. Oh yeah, we've known about it for quite a while. So it's going to be the same with Sasquatch. DNA and technology is going to answer it. Plus boots on the ground, people in the woods. I'm a boots on the ground guy. I'm out there. I'm getting dirty. I love it. You know, I love talking to the people. But yeah, I think people are actually interested in it more than they let on. And that's why the spike. Plus it's seasonal too, you know. My opinion.
What do you think, Marcus?
Yeah, I got to go with Lon. Carter is absolutely, of course, right. But I also go back to what you said a little while ago, Lon. The atmosphere in the United States has changed. Like Carter pointed out, years ago, if you said you saw a UFO or you saw Bigfoot, you better be running somewhere because the guys in the little white coats are fixing to come pack you up. You're done. But today, and this is what's funny. Every single MUFON case that I have investigated, one of my questions is, well, hey, what made you decide to report this to MUFON? Well, I seen this TV show the other night called Unidentified, and you know, I've been watching this cool drama show on the History Channel called Project Blue Book, and I was looking into Dr. J. Allen Hynek, and you know, people are talking about it. They're talking about the Tic Tac. I don't feel alone now. So the atmosphere has changed, and that translates to what's going on in our government. I'll use a word here for you. It's called youth. Our young people who are coming up, the younger generation, they have been watching Independence Day. They've been watching Aliens. They've been watching Star Wars. They've been watching Star Trek. They're open. Their mind is open, you know, to things that were once fantastical. They're just more open-minded, and I think that's creeping into our government. I think it's creeping into the Pentagon. I think there's just an atmosphere where now these people, like the people that have come to me with MUFON, they don't feel like they know that Marcus is going to listen to them. They know that somebody at MUFON sent Marcus their way, and Marcus is not laughing. He's serious. So people are not as afraid no more, and it's because of the internet. It's because of everything you said, Lon, and more.
Yeah, I agree. You know, it's interesting when you see these shows on TV, and then when you talk to people on the internet. Of course, when you get a telephone call or you're answering an email, you know, you can tell when people are serious. I mean, you know, they're not taking, they're not, for the most part, they saw something or thought they saw something, and there's just less hesitation to come forward now. So, and you know, it kind of runs into this other question. What do you think the future is Sasquatch research? Well, I think, you know, like you said, we got a lot of younger folks that are involved with this. You know, it's funny you mentioned Star Wars. God, I was just a kid when that started. And I'm 62 now. So,
me too.
Yeah.
Tell them how old we are.
Yeah. So, you know, but what do you think? What do you think is the destiny of Sasquatch research? You know, I think about this all the time. say we find a Sasquatch, say we do actually have absolute proof one of these things exists. I've seen one, I had an encounter, but there's a lot of people that look for Bigfoot have never seen one, or let alone seen the evidence of one. If it is found, or the proof is there, is the Sasquatch phenomenon moot? Are people going to stop looking into it, or are they going to expand into the research and to try to find something else that's related to it? And I think that's what may happen. I think finding a Bigfoot will kind of give us more info or more desire to look into the supernatural aspect of these things. What do you all think?
I agree. Like I said, I think technology is really going to, blow the lid off of this thing, because, we only see a very small spectrum of light. Every other animal on the planet can see better than we can, than humans. I mean, insects, fish, everything, they all are designed to operate at night. They can see at night. We can't. We have to have little, thermal cameras and goggles to help us see at night. If we create cameras and things of that nature that can help us see the things at night we're really missing. I'm not even talking about thermal cameras. I'm talking about, daylight cameras, see things that are right there and we just can't see them. We look, but we can't see them. I think the technology has to continue. Do they have these paranormal skills we're talking about? Quantum? Of course, we'd have to probably talk to one or see one do these things. No one's ever seen them make a structure, but we know they're there. We see them, and they're not all made by people. Very few are actually probably made by people. So we have to get into the physiology and the psyche of the Sasquatch, I've got witnesses that are talking about mind speak, and I've done research a little bit for the books anyway, as far as what you would actually hallucinate or think you see. You have to have a certain type of mental condition to actually hallucinate, unless you're on drugs, in a Cliff Notes version. But, I think the technology and DNA is going to blow it off. We just have to, once we have a body on a slab, we can't let them say, there you go, they do exist. Now let's just drop it. We'll protect them and put them in a little habitat over here. And no, keep digging. What's all this other stuff that they're gonna give us? That, like the Tic Tac video. They give the Tic Tac video, and what was it, 3 or 4 months ago, promised us all these revelations. Well, that's it. They gave us a carrot. We're still gonna be asking for this stuff at the end of the year. We got too many distractions, COVID and whatever, the economy. So same thing with, the Sasquatch. They're going to give us a body on a slab, and here they are. Okay, you finally met it. All these skeletons the Smithsonian stole and has deep buried in their museum. These are them. So you got us. We've known them about them. We just want to make sure there's nothing else, and that's it. So we'll be spoon-fed some garbage, but we can't take that like we have with the Tic Tac videos. They threw us something. It's a bone. Oh, goody, they're real. Okay, what else? I mean, expand. Oh, that question there? Yeah, the government knows.
Yeah.
The lumber and paper companies know. The Forest Service, they all know. And they're just waiting for us to get so close that they can't keep a lid on it. I mean, that's it. They know. They can't know. We've got a drone on Mars. And you can't tell me that there's a creature living in our woods. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just don't even. Tell me that.
Look at my page.
Just slap you when you tell me that crap, because it's just the joke. Well,
you look at my encounter in the authorities and feds getting involved with. That was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So
it just defies logic.
They're definitely interested in it. And, I have just seen so much evidence over the years that there is a distinct interest by whatever agency is involved. I believe probably military more than anything.
Yeah.
As far as the Bigfoot phenomenon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, when people have gone missing, and when you listen to like for example, now I'm not saying, because I don't know, I wasn't there, I don't know, but if you check out the missing person case of the little boy Dennis Martin. Witnesses saw an upright creature carrying something slung over its shoulder, away from where this young boy disappeared from. A bear is not going to sling something over its shoulder and walk off. You're talking either humanoid, a human, or you're talking Bigfoot. So once this child comes up really hardcore, we know he's missing. Who shows up? The Green Beret. The Green Beret flies in. They set up a completely separate search area. They have nothing to do with the volunteers, the sheriff department, the park officials. The Green Beret search those woods for that boy all by themselves and refuse all contact. Why was the Green Beret there?
Crowd control?
Called them? To this day, nobody knows. But I think, So there's been lots of cases where people have had Bigfoot sightings, and then all of a sudden the military shows up.
Yeah,
I've heard several. So
there have been stories for
absolutely.
years.
And if you stop and think, if you stop people, if you stop people, if your government admits, hey, there's this 8 to 10 foot tall creature that is, again, as big as my refrigerator, roaming the woods, are you going to be encouraged to go to your state and federal parks? You're probably going to go, I'm not going to go to the woods and knowing there's something like that out there. I think it's about money. I think it would stop a lot of revenue.
Yeah.
So I think the government knows that Bigfoot exists, and I don't think they're keen for that information to get out either.
Well, if you take the 411 books and you take an overlay of the cave system in the United States and overlay it on a map of the 411 missing, heck of a close correlation with the missing and the cave system, known and purported cave system. There's certain ones they admit to and certain ones haven't even been explored yet, but there's a massive cave system under our feet, so that could be, there's just too many weird things. And this is another thing with the research that, Paulides is doing and, technology, you have to, and the Forest Service doesn't even report when people go missing in their own parks. They're not required to. Well, what about having a soul and caring about people? I mean, what do you mean I don't have to report it because we're not required to? Well, how about you just be square and honest with it? Yeah, old Bob Smith just disappeared. He walked up there, took his shoes off, and disappeared, and we've never seen him again. We found his backpack and his shoes, and his folded up socks and his boots. What is that? A very clever.
And let me say this too. I'm not. I mean, and I'm not saying that Bigfoot is responsible for all these disappearances. I'm probably cases where Bigfoot has done some of this. I think if you come up on the right Bigfoot, like any animal, what's going to happen to you if you come up on a mama bear?
Been there.
Yeah,
you're not going to end well.
I mean, so I ended up in it.
I think if you hey bear, it's too much to these missing people to all be Bigfoot. So it's not all Bigfoot.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's really much Bigfoot related, but my whole point is there's things going on, and I know they know about that too, and we're just being played for dummies. There's something there.
Sure.
I think very little of it actually has to do with Bigfoot, but my point was just the things that are going on that the government, in one form or fashion, whatever department they are, Forestry Service, DNS, whatever, they know, and they just don't say anything because, hey, we don't have to. We're the government. We don't have to tell you anything. if we don't want to.
Yeah.
So, so there's all kinds of weird stuff going on. Paranormal, UFO, Sasquatch, Mothman. There's all kinds of stuff. We're not all suffering from mass hysteria. There's stuff going on, and those of us just don't want to explain it. Well, we just don't. The
That's
the
right.
dummy side. And you just got to have an open mind at all this stuff. You just open the mind. You don't have to believe. Just consider it. Just go, well, that's weird. Well, I've heard that like 17 other times. Okay, maybe there's something to that. Just keep it on the plate. Think about it. So.
Well, look, guys, I appreciate you coming on tonight. Really good show. Very good discussion. I like this format where we get the chat involved with asking questions and kind of rolling off the answers as best we can. So once again, I want to thank you all for coming on, and I will definitely have you all come back. This is going to be a monthly thing, and we're going to bring members of the team on and see if we can answer people's questions. I think people enjoy it. So you all take care and you have a good weekend.
All right, Lon.
So, if you have an unexplained encounter or sighting, feel free to call and contact me through the Fams of Monsters blog site. And I want to again thank Carter Buschardt and Marcus Ellis for joining me this evening. And thanks to each and all of you for watching and chatting. If you made a super chat donation, it's truly appreciated. Your support is what makes all this possible. So please like, subscribe, and share. So until next week, and look, next week is going to be an interesting Mothman discussion. I'm going to have Tobias Whalen and Travis Short coming in, and we're going to dig deep into the Mothman phenomena. So, like I said, till next week, stay healthy, have a safe and enjoyable weekend. Good night.